Good morning, everyone. It's the hour of 9. Welcome to this committee of the whole meeting. It's too bad it's not raining now instead of this evening. So be it. Are there any declarations of pecuniary? Seeing none. We have two delegations this morning. The first group is from the District of Muskoka, and Rick. Hi, Rick. Good morning. John, you're going to take the lead on this, are you?
Very good.
So, Chair John Klink. Morning, Steve.
Morning.
The switch is underneath, yeah. Take it away.
Well, good morning once again, Your Worship. Nice to be back in Georgian Bay again. Treated us so well yesterday, we decided to come back again this morning.
Come back on Thursday, too.
Yeah. We will.
We'll treat you to golf.
Anyway, I'm delighted to be here just to kick things off. And I am joined by Councillor Steve Clement. Steve is a district councillor in the town of Bracebridge, and also sits as our chair of community services at the District of Muskoka. And to Steve's left is Rick Williams, who many of you know. Rick is our commissioner of community services at the District of Muskoka, and the one who keeps us all organized, as usual, behind the scenes, is Sandra Moseley. Sandra is the project manager for the community services department. So she reaches out throughout the department and facilitates wherever necessary. So thank you for having us. I will just kick things off very briefly. We're going to go through several areas. I'll just give you a quick introduction as to the basis of what we do at the Community Services Department at the District of Muskoka on behalf of your ratepayers and those across Muskoka. Steve Clement is going to go over some of the accomplishments of programs that are being offered throughout Muskoka and here in Georgian Bay. And then Rick is going to take the reins and walk you through an update on the Community Services Department. So first of all, as you may or may not realize, the Community Services Department operates under the auspices of the provincial government, and much of what we do is funded by the province, and it varies from 100% to 80% to 75% through funds that are forwarded to us by the province. Rick, the last number I had was something in the order of over $40 million, I think, is flowed, if you can imagine, through the district on behalf of the province. And I guess somewhat unfortunately, the second bullet there alludes to the fact that we have had significant growth over the last 6, 7, 8 years, probably as a result of the economic situation, the loss of a great number of manufacturing jobs in Muskoka, something that far too many rural communities are experiencing. But we have had, as a result of not only the economic situation over the last decade, but also shifting in demographics, we've seen a unfortunate growth in the social service sector in Muskoka. We're not alone. There's many other communities, unfortunately, who are experiencing the same thing. The good news, I guess, alluded to in bullet number 3, is the fact that there are a great number of measurement systems that allow us to compare ourselves against municipalities throughout Ontario and beyond, in some cases. There's one referred to there as OMBI, which is the Ontario Municipal Benchmarking Initiative. And we're very proud of the fact that when we measure our performance indicators against those other municipalities that are municipal service managers, we fare exceptionally well and actually have several categories where we lead the province, which is good news in terms of efficiency and effectiveness in delivering programs. You can also see we do have 3 community services offices, probably not surprisingly located in the larger urban centers of Muskoka, being Huntsville, Bracebridge, and Gravenhurst. But, excuse me, over the last several years, we have made a concentrated effort to work very closely with the townships, and Georgian Bay is certainly one of those. We have arrangements whereby we share an employee and administer programs locally, which seems to be working out very, very well, and we'd like to thank you for that. So that's my introduction. I'll gladly turn it over to Councillor Clement to walk you through the next portion of the presentation.
Joe?
Thank you, Chairman Frank, and thank you for having us, Your Worship. Morning to all. As mentioned, I am the Chair of Community Services. I've been on this committee for the past 10 years, and during my time in the Community Services, I've been very aware at the staff level, we have an awful lot of dedicated, caring, and compassionate staff, and that works well with our accomplishments for in Muskoka. I'd like to acknowledge Peter Cooper, your councillor from Georgian Bay, is on our committee of community services, and it's always nice to have a councillor from each municipality on all the different committees, so we can have lots of feedback. I think it's very important for the towns and townships to know what is being accomplished at community services through their community and the district in its entirety. Community services is a very large department within the district. It's a larger operational budget and more employees than public works. Public works sounds very exciting, but community services is actually bigger. Public works is roads and bridges. Community services is lives and well-being. We have a staff of over, I don't know the exact numbers now, over 300. We have approximately 230 plus people at the Pines Home for the Aged, and 70 plus in social services. 20% of our population is affected by community services in one way or another. We are responsible for social services, including, and this bear with me for a second, so this way you'll realize a lot of the things that happens within your community in the district, including interior works, long-term care, social housing, homelessness, interior disability support programs, senior programs, child and youth services, health plans such as health links and health hubs, transportation such as Muskoka Extended Transit, which brings citizens from Matthew to Bracebridge and I believe Port Southern to Midland. We would have community kitchens, fresh food baskets, income tax clinics, the Nest, which is usable for needed infant and children's clothing and accessories, social enterprise initiatives such as impact cafe and catering services, emergency shelters, and funding for shortfalls on monthly payments, and many more. So that's a lot we do within the community, and very necessary. In the handout in front of you today, or that will be passed out electronically, it is in great detail, including the statistics and comparables to the province. It is a well-known fact that we, here in Muskoka, are well below the provincial average for income and well below the provincial average for unemployment in relation to population. We're known as a community for the rich and famous, but the reality is we, the locals, are not in that category. Whether you're in the townships or the towns, the District of Muskoka Community Services strives to deliver a high quality and variety of services that meet the needs of your community. I encourage you to read the information prepared for you so you can understand the need and demand that falls upon our staff on a day-to-day basis. Thank you for the time and opportunity to inform you of a very needed but not recognized department in the District of Muskoka.
Which is underneath, Rick, these work opposite to ours at the council.
Thanks very much. As has been mentioned by Councillor Clements, that we are we've left a fair amount of material for you, and I won't try to go through that bit by bit, but certainly if you're able to review that material, I'd be more than happy to respond to any questions or inquiries as to the nature or the data behind the development. We're really pleased to have developed a unique relationship with Georgian Bay Township on the shared staffing approach or initiative, and I think that's going to suit us well into the future. And of course, I was more than pleased to work with members of your community on the development of the health hub last year, and I think that's a strong program going into the future. What I'm going to do is just maybe get a sense of, or give you a sense as to who we're trying to serve, and that's the 2 points that both John and Steve have mentioned, and that's demographics and economics. Muskoka has been challenged with both demographic change and economic change the last decade, and those underlying forces are not going away and remain issues that we're going to be dealing with through district community services, and I'm sure that are going to impact all of us for the next decade. The demographics are that about 30 to 33%, we put 31% plus, are currently today in what we would call the vulnerable sector, which would be seniors, additional people who are living in poverty, and additionally people who have disabilities. Those are the broad categories that we serve. We provide services and supports to all of that group, including, of course, added to that is young children, particularly young children living in poverty. So that's our target population, and that group of people is growing in Muskoka. It's growing across Ontario, but Muskoka has a particular overrepresentation of all 3 of those conditions. More seniors in an aging population, more people with disabilities in an increasingly disabled population, and more people living in poverty. That last issue, the poverty issue, of course, has been a new feature to Muskoka because of the impact of decline of employment, the reduction of the manufacturing sector in the town, the relative decline, other than this past summer of a boost in tourism, was a relative decline of tourism-related employment. Many people who live in Muskoka do not have contributory pensions, and so that when they retire, they are down to a basic income level. All of that together has created some pressures that we see on a daily basis, and you would see on a daily basis, on the health and well-being and level of engagement of that vulnerable population. Just turning to the economic part on the next slide, as was mentioned, we see that the reported income of Muskoka tax filers, in other words, permanent residents or those filing taxes with a permanent address or a primary address in Muskoka, has dropped to around 83% of the provincial average. It was at 90% a decade ago. It dropped to 87% 5 years ago. It's now at 83%. That's worrisome, naturally enough, and does create some pressure points along a lot of our areas. It shows up in an increased number or a relatively high and growing number of people on social assistance. But where it even shows up more is people needing some type of emergency support or housing support in order to maintain life in Muskoka. And the district, I think, has responded quite actively and very creatively through the creation of a large number of housing support programs that are outlined in your package. So what you have in the rest of the package, the 56 pages, is a number of charts and graphs. I won't try to go through them all. I'll touch on one or two. This is one of the areas we're particularly proud is our vision and value statement, by the way. And the mission statement of the organization is instilling hope, changing lives, and building communities. And I think that that's an area that we have been successful and wish to be more successful. There's a few broad areas that we're trying to achieve. We're responsible for the whole area of child care, and one of the areas, this next slide, is our strategic priorities that we're trying to work on for the next decade, and where we hope to partner with the township and with other social agencies. Early years programming is one area. We'll be establishing early years centers throughout Muskoka over the next 2 years. There is a declining number of children in Muskoka. Young child births are down slightly. They're more dramatically decreasing in Northern Ontario, slightly increasing in Southern Ontario. Muskoka is partway in between. We're basically holding our own as far as the number of kids. But we, of course, want to make sure that all children within Muskoka are successful, and I think early years support is a way to do that. Language enrichment programs, those types of things that will position Muskoka children well to compete in the future. Going down that left-hand column, we have early years programming. We also have a growth in the seniors program area. Muskoka does have a large and growing number of seniors. We're going to be therefore serving more seniors into the future. We have the third highest portion of seniors as a total percentage of population. And we have a unique issue in Muskoka where the portion of that population that has poverty, that is below the average income, is growing as well. Continuing down the left side, to grow community engagement, trying to make sure that citizens, there's a lot, I think social commentators now are talking about loneliness and disconnection as being one of the major challenges to any society, any community. And we try to, through volunteerism and through other social programs, try to get people back in touch with each other. The affordable housing area is a huge issue for us. One of the areas that I think you can become particularly excited is in the area of affordable housing and response to housing issues. Social housing in Ontario used to be building 20 or 30 unit buildings that were specifically designated as low-income housing. What we've chosen to do the last 20 years or so has been to not create a concentrated area of social housing, but to have individual apartments and individual arrangements with landlords and with tenants in order to subsidize support in any community, in any apartment, or any home, or any house. And I think that that's allowed us to become much more flexible in our delivery of housing support. Social assistance and emergency assistance, there's more and more people receiving monthly checks from the district for their support, including occasional or one-time emergency assistance. And then finally, building social enterprise. We hope to create businesses and work with business in trying to ensure that opportunities for employment and employability are available to people throughout Muskoka, because self-reliance and optimism are the major tenets of social services and what we want to achieve. So the package is there for you to look at for particular data within Georgian Bay Township. We believe we are making a difference in our approach. We think we have quality programs. We think that we can work well with communities at the local level. We're particularly pleased with the arrangement we have with the shared staff with you. We think that that can become more broadly usable in the future so that people will be able to apply for social assistance, emergency assistance, housing, child care, seniors programs right here in Georgian Bay, and being able to access services better than they could previously. So I know there's a lot of material here. As was mentioned, we're a large and fortunately or unfortunately growing services in Muskoka. We're also well linked to the health hubs and the other partnerships that we have with you. And again, if there are questions on any of the data, please give me a ring. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Rick. And Sandra, do you have a presentation, or are you the master of the slideshow? The community services, in my estimation, I sat on it for 2 terms, and it's probably the most complex piece of the District of Muskoka. Kudos to all the people that work in that department. I sometimes wonder how you manage to deal with a lot of the hard luck stories. And of course, we've had a number of them come and present to us. I don't know how someone that was living in the ditches, so to speak, and has actually come out and got a car and a house and a job and all that, how they can actually come before us and tell us that story. That's got to take an awful lot of inner gumption to be able to come. And I know some of them have come and there's been tears in their eyes, and the committee members go away with tears in their eyes listening to all this. So thank you again. So the package that Rick Williams is talking about came last night, and I guess, Jessica, you're going to email it out? Oh, you have emailed it out? So I'm sure everybody's had a read of it now, and you're done? Good. Anyways, staff are always at the end of the email if you have questions, that sort of thing. John, you had something?
Well, just in conclusion, Your Worship, thanks again for the opportunity to come before you. The one thing that I have found in my experience as a local councillor, district councillor, and as the mayor, and now in my role at the district, is despite the breadth of the programs that we offer and our exposure in the community and the communities throughout Muskoka, there often is an individual or a family out there that for one reason or another isn't aware of the programs, or just out of simple pride doesn't want to ask for help. And I know that as councillors you move through your communities on a daily basis, and you may hear of someone within your community that you think maybe needs some help and might be a little bit too proud to ask for some help. So I would encourage you, if you hear of those types of circumstances, to reach out to Commissioner Williams and his staff and let us know, because it's surprising how, and you've spoken, Your Worship, about the success stories, and it's incredible that you offer a little bit of help. It's not the handout, but the hand up mentality, and we have some exceptional professionals who can sort of guide them on the journey of giving them some hope and some faith. And the one thing that always strikes me is that slide that suggested that there's over 1,000 children out there that are living in a situation that's less than desirable, and if we hear of those, there's always going to be some that we're not aware of or haven't been connected with the programs for one reason or another. So we're sort of counting on you to keep your eyes and ears open, and I know that Rick's staff is more than welcome to hear from you and sort of set them on a better journey.
And that has happened over the years, and after we hired Ms. Whiston, there were some that came out. There were people that couldn't even get to Port Severn other than hitchhiking. I remember one fellow, he couldn't get a job because he only had a couple of teeth in his mouth. And I know through Fran Coleman up in Huntsville, there's a program up there that helps people get fixed up that way, because certainly when you open your mouth in an interview, it has quite an effect on the interviewer. So once again, thank you very much. Does any of the councillors have any questions at this point of our presenters?
Yeah, we do have Jennifer Wisner, who's on maternity right now, but I was just wondering, what's our workload in our township? Is it sufficient for one employee, or do we have more issues that we should have more resources in our township, or are we handling it properly and we're covering everything? I just don't know. From your perspective, if we're handling everything that we can in our township, I just want to get an opinion on it.
Sure. We've just sort of redefined that program in partnership with the staff here, and one of the restrictions we have, because we deliver provincial programs or programs on behalf of the province, is that we cannot assign that to another tier of government, and the province does make sure that the legislative authority of the district to provide material works, housing, childcare, and so on is at least streamed through those channels. So it's more effective for us to have the person here carry with them the authority that the district would have, in other words, to be a district employee. And so we've just recently realigned that to have that capacity here, but also to be able to serve the types of things, the more discretionary and local programs that Jennifer mentioned as part of working to develop food bank programs, the support to the health hubs, some of the children's and outreach programs that are extremely valuable as well. So those, year, Councillor, is try to evaluate the use of the service. We expect that the person or that position will be able to see people who update their employment plans under Ontario Works, to take housing applications and connect people to rent subsidy arrangements, to take an application from a family that's particularly challenged and needs some emergency support. And so we'll try to look at those outcomes over the next year and then see if, I doubt if you want fewer staff than 1.0, and whether or not we want to expand that in some way. I guess we'll take a look at the volume a year down the road. It'll be different than it has been the last few years, and I'm sure that the more people will be served this year than were last.
And once again, thank you very much for coming down to beautiful Georgian Bay Township.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christian, welcome.
Morning, Your Worship and Councillors.
Morning. The button, if the red light isn't on, the button is underneath the microphone.
I've learned so in the last day. Push. All right, we're good.
There we go. Yep.
Good. Excellent. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the 6 Mile Lake Great Bears Alliance, we're speaking in regards to oversized cottages. In the last council meeting, I believe council has requested that Nick Popovich seek to or propose ways in which to curb oversized cottages. And the Great Bears Alliance has also looked at ways to assist in that regard. So we may begin, let's begin by kind of outlining who we are. 6 Mile Lake Cottagers, Cottagers, my close. 6 Mile Lake Great Bears Alliance was founded in 2016 as a result of the concerns around the OP amendment that was recently withdrawn. As a result of that, our mandate is to advance, protect, and promote the interests of persons who own properties on 6 Mile Lake. In addition to that, we work diligently to promote good government at all levels and partner with those governments. We also advocate on behalf of our membership on policy issues, on key government policy issues such as variances, bylaws, environment, and so on. Naturally, we'll also look at addressing some tax issues, and we look forward to speaking to the next COW in regards to the upcoming budgetary review. And of course, we educate our membership and our community on matters pertaining to their property and things that we feel are appropriate. So with that being said, provide some background to the next slide. As we all know, recent changes were proposed by 6 Mile Lake Cottagers Association to change the OP in ways that would further or could further restrict future building of oversized cottages. Subsequently, the proposal was withdrawn. However, as I mentioned earlier, council had suggested to investigate new ways in the possibility of restricting oversized cottages. 6 Mile Lake has a very specific set of bylaws, which would have been identified in Mr. Popovich's report, which currently restricts oversized cottages. And in addition to that, 6 Mile Lake is unique in that we are one of 3 lakes within the Georgian Bay Township purview that have these additional restrictions. So it's just a quick kind of summary. The current 3 restrictions that we have that other lakes do not are maximum width provisions, gross floor area provisions, and in addition to that, lot coverage provisions. And we don't need to go into detail. I'm familiar with these provisions. Next slide. We feel that 6 Mile Lake is a unique lake. and cannot be categorized or parceled or packaged as part of the rest of the Georgian Bay lakes and cottages. In that, right now, on average, our cottage-sized lots are roughly about 100 feet or 1 acre lots, whereas my understanding is that the other lakes do not have a 100-foot lot size on average. We looked to confirm the data. Unfortunately, we weren't able to confirm the average size lots for many of the other lakes, but it is our understanding that the average size lot within 6 Mile Lake currently is 100 feet or 1 acre. Due to the situation, we feel that 6 Mile Lake should retain its unique status and that no further restrictions be applied to us. Which leads us to the definition of what an oversized cottage is and how we can objectively define what oversized, what the term oversized is. And we can see here a picture of a cottage, and the question is this perceived to be oversized? Next slide. Or perhaps this cottage is perceived to be oversized. Is oversized defined as anything that goes beyond the bylaws specific to the lake? Or is oversized defined as a large structure? How do we define an oversized cottage? Do we define it across the board as a one-size-fits-all definition for all lakes within Georgian Bay Township? Or do we define it as lake-specific? So what is the definition, and how do we define an oversized cottage? Next slide. Just a quick glance at some of the 6 Mile Lake variances over the course of the last 2 years. As we can see, there's been numerous variance applications over the last 2 years, roughly totaling, I believe, in and around the high 30 mark. Total of 14 for the maximum width provision, a total of 17 for gross floor area, and a total of 6 for lot coverage provision. And based on these numbers, it's our opinion that currently the bylaws are not in harmony with the building expectations and demographic changes that are occurring right now as we undergo what we define as the greater tsunami, with retirements and the baby boomers retiring and looking at building residences or part-time residences here in the township. Next slide. As we also come to understand, there are 4 current tests which are considered at the Committee of Adjustments. These tests are, it must conform with the official plan, must also conform with the zoning bylaws, it must be minor in nature, which we currently believe to be somewhat of subjective interpretation, as well as it must be desirable and not have a negative visual impact, which again is somewhat subjective. Next slide. So in future consideration, we suggest that we review and amend the official plan to suit the needs of 6 Mile Lake. Zoning amendments, which would, in addition to that, zoning amendments would be mitigated, and the high number of minor variances may be minimized. We also suggest revisiting the 2014 bylaws as they apply to 6 Mile Lake community, and possibly undergo somewhat of a house cleaning on those bylaws. Now, if I may, with respect to Mr. Popovich's recommendations, 6 Mile Lake Ratepayers Alliance suggests and advises that option number 1, which is to maintain the status quo, be considered by council and by the committee of the whole today and in the future. If we feel that any additional restrictions to building on our lake may cause additional harm to the microeconomy, and as we've heard earlier this morning by the previous delegates, unemployment is somewhat high in the district of Muskoka, and the microeconomy definitely could use building and the income and revenues that come through the ability to build. In addition to that, it may harm property values in that people may look outside of the district of Muskoka purchasing future cottages, thereby decreasing supply or demand, and of course with that, decreasing property values. In addition to that, increases of variance requests, and of course with that, the possibility of increases of applications to the OMB. And so for these reasons, we ask that committee of the whole, councillors today consider Ms. Popovich's option number 1 of maintaining the status quo. Are there any questions with regards to my presentation?
Councillors, any questions of Christian's presentation?
Excellent. Thank you.
You have the presentation?
And I have emailed it to members of the
Okay, that's good. I couldn't read some of the small print on there, unfortunately, old eyes.
We'll make it a little bit bigger for next time.
Great, thank you very much.
Excellent.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Next item of business is adopting the agenda. Moved by Councillor Boschek, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Be it resolved that Committee of the Whole adopts the agenda of September 13, 2016 meeting as amended or circulated. Are there any suggestions for amendment? Seeing none, it will read as circulated. All those in favor? Carries. And the next item is open forum. We do have someone that's signed up today. Mr. Demke, welcome.
Thank you. Just, Chairman.
Sure.
Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to speak. I guess, not sure what the open forum was all about, but when Paul mentioned that there was an opportunity to talk, our committees in MacTier decided that we should come and say something. So I've kind of put some points together. Might be a little disjointed flow, but I've written some stuff down. We'll go from there. On behalf of the MacTier Events and Festival Committees, I'd like to thank you as members of Council for the support you've given us in recent times. Hopefully you hear that lots of times. There's a few things. MacTier, being a railroad town that really isn't much of a railroad town anymore, has looked to rebrand from what we call rails to trails. And part of our 150 initiative this year was to start that program in terms of welcoming bikers who come through town anyway. And there's more and more of them coming through riding bikes. So we set up an initiative called Pedal and Play, which invited bikers, members of the community, and others to come into the town and put a stage area where they could set up their bikes. They don't have to leave them the cars on the side of the road, which was happening and such. In order for this to happen, a couple of things. We found it very difficult for the riders to get into town because the roads are very narrow. So we came to council and asked about getting paved shoulders into the center of town to an area near our arena, which we would set up as a staging area. That became partly a district issue because there was a fair bit of money involved. We got really outstanding support from the council and the whole members of the township for that. The paving of the shoulders coming into town is a key requirement and provided some challenges to council. We'd like to single out, in this particular case, Councillor Wanko and Mayor Braid for coming to the rescue at the district meeting, where there were some challenges brought up, and I believe it was Mayor Braid came up with a compromise that allowed approval of that item, and we're very, very appreciative. The work got done in time for the ride, preparation of the staging area. We have, behind the LCBO was a big area that was just a dumping area. And the council, or the township came through and leveled that area off, made a staging area, have put other things like volleyball court area in for us. Just things that we never thought would be possible, and we need to thank them for that. We got a gazebo at the beach, which we talked about for several years. It's going to come. That thing happened, and that was really, it's a really nice place to see now down at the beach. When I was young, my dad grew up in Mactier. I didn't, and we grew up in Sudbury, but we retired back to here in the family home. And I can remember as a kid playing down at the lake there, and now it looks, the gazebo's nicer than the one that was there, which really helps. But it's nice to be able to have a space that the people can go to. So that was really nice. We have a museum, a Railroad Heritage Museum, and I'm part of the Heritage Society. So other than the caboose that people see beside the library, for those who have been in Mactier, we do have a museum, which is by our medical center and Lions Club. A lot of people don't know it's there. So one of the things we talked about was, can we have some sort of signage indication to get people to go there? So we came up with the thought of maybe on the sidewalks having something, arrows or something to take out of the museum. We came up with a central of a caboose. So when we approached the township working people, I guess, with this, Tom Young was very supportive, and Brad, and they just took and painted the stencils all the way up to the turn into Higg Street, which leads to the museum, and then we had to, because there's no shoulders at all on the side of Higg Street, we put up a little sign. But it just, and we have had people come up to us and say, oh, I noticed these, what are they for? And other people now are saying, oh, I didn't even know you had a museum. So these are really things that help us, and just to get something small like that done is very, very, very good. One of the committees we talked about in fundraising, beach access for disabled, challenged people, strollers, people couldn't get to the gazebo that we have now. So this idea of Moby Mats came up, which is a product that's used by quite a few communities now, and would be the right kind of thing to allow these people to get to the gazebo and to the water. We fundraised for some of it, but we needed a lot more, and you as a council and the township supported this. We now have Moby Mats there. I think we have some more things to do, but for next year, it looks like they're going to be in there, and that's fantastic that we would do that. Another thing was our curling club is dissolving. We just haven't been able to carry it forward, so we're looking at closing that down and selling the building. It's unfortunate we just don't have enough people who want to curl to support that big an enterprise. So Tom Young and Brad got their people, and they painted curling circles in our arena so that we can allow for curling to happen should we try to do that. That's fantastic for that to happen. It's actually a better venue in terms of the school is right across the street. We can encourage the school children to curl on that one day a week. Don't know how that's going to go yet, but when we said we just weren't sure, the township people said, we're painting them anyway. We'd like to encourage, and talk with Brad the other day, the school children especially, to come. They used to come to our curling club, but sometimes they wouldn't show up. Well, we couldn't get them all down the road. Didn't have drivers, whatever. Now it's right across the street. So we see that that's really going to be helpful. So without that support, well, it probably wouldn't happen. I'd like to acknowledge the efforts of Brett, Sokach, and Tom Young and their staff. I mean, they're always helpful, always supportive. And this is good. We haven't had that kind of thing in years, and we see a lot of that there. Residents, there's evidence of appreciation and support. Seniors and parents with strollers and wheelchair-bound people are actually using those paid lanes, not just bikers. And they're really appreciative of that, and they're providing positive feedback. I mentioned the viewing of the blue symbols on the road, got people talking about the museum. We actually have people coming up to some of our committee members, me in particular, with comments such as the township seems to be we're listened to now as a township, and we have a council that seems to care. That's so positive. Since this council was elected, there's some more positive relationship with the townspeople. I personally can attribute a lot of this to Councillor Douglas, who has taken a real interest in supporting our constituents, and to District Councillor Rango. Both are active members of our committees, attend our events and celebrations whenever possible. The efforts of these two individuals have gone a long way to turn most negative attitudes, and I had one of them, in act here to ones of appreciation and hope for the future of the township. And one last note of thank you to Brian Hochek, who's shown an interest in having Wards 1 and 2 work together on some initiatives. Brian and his wife have attended and monetarily supported some of our initiatives and projects, as well as extended invitations for our residents to attend Ward 2 activities. And through the policing, we're trying to make that happen, and it's one of the things that I personally would like to. I'm on the Northern Policing Committee. We'd like to make that happen. In closing, I'd like to say that as a resident, it's been very nice to work in cooperation with the council once again. In my 16 years as a permanent resident, there have only been one previous council that seemed to listen to our concerns. This council appears to be there again. And we, the residents, are very appreciative. As Cynthia says, we can't do everything, but we'll push for the best bang for the buck. And that's all we can hope for. That's the way it should be. I have a card here, which was a card of appreciation we're going to mail out. I can give that to maybe Lori but anyway, thank you very much, and we look forward to more growth in the future.
Thank you very much, Bill. Those are great comments. Thanks, Bill. Lori?
I don't think you're one that's a great thing. Fantastic.
I know.
That's not what we get over the forum, so we really appreciate that. That's really nice.
That's okay. When I first said I was going to punch Cynthia session, I prepared. But we do appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah. I think I'm going to call a 5-minute break here before we dive into this development services report. So we'll come back at 10 o'clock. Good job, councillors. Very seldom we get kudos. I couldn't cut them off. Well Oh, yeah. Good. Well, tell me where they came from, with the support I have. So, like, better take advantage of my stock. I just wanted to thank you.
It's amazing, though. They had a council in town last time. Yeah, you knew. Did you know Jamie's restaurant? Yeah, well, I met him several times. He was Okay, okay.
I think you did too. There was quite a wind.
For me, you mean, not you.
No, for you. Behind me about 25 faster than I was going. Amazing. The truck traffic. Driving here, there are some trucks that can come and pass. Nothing, no wind buffeting or anything. And there's other ones that come
Really?
just hanging on for dear life.
Because you're both like the same length, and it's just too, because I know sometimes even at the SUV, it's like, oh, maybe a little bit, but.
Just what comes off the front hood. And some of them push an air angle in front of them constantly.
Oh, yeah. So you partied it up yet on your new RV or what?
Sorry?
Have you partied it up yet on your new RV?
Party?
Yeah.
I'm a little old for partying.
Bullshit.
Camera?
Yeah, we had a good time. We had a good
No,
time.
I'm kidding.
Kathy get a hold of Robbie,
I think so, yeah.
Gooch, and
Oh, good.
I think Lynn was saying that 33 teams signed up.
that's what I heard last week. I'm hoping more, and I ran into Harold Elson last night, who thought it was already done,
Oh,
but I sent it to him, and Bill Van Ryn from
okay.
CC Tatum, he was interested, so I sent it to him too.
Well, when we started, it was 40 something.
Well, 36 is a full complement, but you can always squeeze a few more in. Nice. Another 2 minutes.
How many teams you went last year, did you say?
Only 2. Option 4. Option 4 is 104.
Yeah, that's what they should jump out of.
Well, I think for nice place. Trees, he figured out where they look and stuff too. He came with us to the house. Just and then we afterwards we did some presentations.
Yeah, we have
He's up there. Whistling away.
I'm open, but I mean,
Hilarious.
I think I might
Pulling all these big ropes and pieces out of the town, they finally found it. They spot for him, and I listened, I said, I find that excellent. heard him talking to the German earlier, so I thanked him in German. His speeches are... Just because you can have words for English doesn't mean the cost of living. Any solutions, Kathy?
People,
Ammonium.
Yeah, okay.
But I have down to do again.
Oh, okay. That's good.
I can't.
Celebration.
Don't worry, one will happen when it's there.
Well, you may have to do that. Plastic Ziploc bag somewhere.
I made a mistake yesterday. It's almost too close to mine.
Oh.
Like it's that bad. Not pretty.
How's your puppy? Exploding still?
Exploded last night.
See, that's nothing over here.
Yeah, well, anyway, and she said, and I told my dad.
So I texted
My dad
Rob
was
and
something that
said you'll be out a couple times. She said, sounds like she's got a motor. She's the adventure. Had some, gave her about 20 minutes old.
And I knew that. You don't want to use
Yeah, no kidding. That's good.
Also, okay, folks, we'll call the meeting back to order. And that was very refreshing to hear that we're doing a lot of great things up in MacTier. We've tried to do things over the years in a number of areas, and we've been very fortunate for very few dollars. We've moved a number of projects along, and the people are actually fundraising for some of the things. I think the Moby Mats was one of them. So great, and thank you, councillors, for towing the line up there. So, Development Services report. You want to run us through this one?
Sure.
Nick?
Thanks, Chair Rick. So, in response to council direction, I put together this report that addresses oversized cottages, and I think that oversized cottage concern related primarily to 6 Mile Lake. But as you'll see in the report, there are other areas of the municipality that also have gross floor area caps. So what I try to do is just give you where we are in terms of our planning documents, and I've given some options about where we might want to go in the future. And I'm looking for direction from the committee. And I guess what I see happening is, depending on what happens today, then I can bring a subsequent report back to council next month that tries to capture some of your concerns or comments that I hear today, and go forward with one of these directions. And you'll see one of the directions that I'm suggesting does not require anything for us to do as staff, so that's one of the options. But the concern on 6 Mile Lake, I think it relates to the fact that there are caps in place, but there's also the policy that allows for some flexibility depending on the site-specific circumstances with lots. And that relates to visual barriers or substantial amount of vegetation.
I think the reason it's there for 6 Mile Lake is because it's an inland lake, whereas our coastal areas, we don't have a lot of vegetation in many cases. It's bare and windswept and that sort of thing. So I wasn't here for when the 6 Mile Lake policies were developed, and I think that's the main reason we have it in 6 Mile on the coast. So in terms of our official plan, there are 3 communities that have these gross floor area caps. So it's Cog Machine, Home Bay, and 6 Mile Lake. So for whatever the reasons over the history of those communities, they decided through public consultation to go that route in those 3 communities. So just to single out 6 Mile Lake, the maximum gross floor area cap there is 275 square meters. That's about 3,000 square feet. So that is entrenched in the official plan. The other thing in the official plan that we sometimes use as planners is there's a section A, which is our implementation section. And that section states that numbers are guidelines only, and that if you comply with all the other principles of the official plan, that you can flex on those numbers. So we sometimes use that as planners if there's a circumstance where we believe you can exceed some of those caps. So again, that's the official plan component of this report. We then go into the zoning bylaw, and as council has become familiar with, the zoning bylaw is the tool that implements the official plan. So very often, you'll have the same numbers that are in the official plan being repeated in the zoning bylaw. And that is the case, except we have an additional waterfront community that regulates gross floor area, and that is Wawa Tasty. So the official plan has 3 communities identified, the zoning bylaw has 4 communities identified. And in the report, I've given you what those caps are in the zoning bylaw. In terms of 6 Mile Lake, which again is the one I want to focus on because that's where this all started, the zoning bylaw has 2 caps. So if you're under 4,000 square meters, which is an acre, so if you're under an acre, your maximum gross floor area is 190 square meters. That's about 2,000 square feet. So I'm not sure how many lots on 6 Mile are under an acre in size. We can find those numbers out through some more analysis, but I wanted to sort of get an idea of where council is before I delve into those specific numbers. And depending which direction we take, the next report would have all those numbers in it. So that's if you're under 4,000 square meters or 1 acre in size. If you're over 4,000 square meters or over 1 acre in terms of the lot, then you're allowed 275 square meters, which is about 3,000 square feet. The other thing that kicks in is lot coverage. So there's 2 things that work. There's the size of the lot and there's lot coverage, which is 5% within the first 60 meters or 200 feet of the waterway. So that's kind of a policy framework and zoning framework. Now you went into some options that you have. So the first option is status quo. Leave things as they are. Let staff deal with it on a case-by-case basis, using the tools in the official plan that we have. The other option is to make more restrictive policies. So if you find as council or committee that these numbers are not restrictive enough, you can direct staff to become and develop more restrictive policies or policies and regulations. And of course, that's a public process. So the first thing, if you go down that route, is staff is going to have to liaise with the communities and see what their thoughts are, and then bring something back to council. Because in my opinion, there's no point changing things if the community doesn't want them changed. So that would be kind of a 2-step process if you decide to go that route. The third option I provided was design guidelines. And the reason I provided this is communities already that has design guidelines, and I did give you the design guidelines on page 10 of the report, which is an option. So those are found in the Go Home Bay portion of the official plan. So design guidelines are kind of what you would like to see and the type of development you'd like to see. So maybe post and beam, maybe the extensive use of wood, maybe peaks or roofs that are 412 or whatever sort of direction you want to go. So it's not really a zoning bylaw regulation, it's not an official plan regulation, but it's something that if you adopt design guidelines, new development should follow those design guidelines. There's always going to be an exception, but you leave it to staff to sort of determine whether those design guidelines are being followed. And what I've noted in the report is if you decide to go that way, again, you have to liaise with the affected community to make sure that we understand the type of built form they want in their community. So Go Home Bay is the only one that has it. They've given a broad sense of what they'd like to see, but there are no design guidelines that have been drafted yet. One of the things that I should do now that we have a little more time and more staff is to reach out to Go Home Bay and see if they want to develop these design guidelines, and then staff will work with them to develop them from their community. So you could direct staff to develop design guidelines for 6 Mile, for instance. And we would again work with the community to develop those design guidelines. And the last option that I came up with is an interim control bylaw. So the Planning Act allows us to use this tool when there's a concern over something in the zoning bylaw. So I've heard from the 6 Mile Lake community, I've heard from the 6 Mile Lake Cottage Association specifically, we've heard from the Ratepayers Alliance, we've heard from the council that there are some concerns. So the interim control bylaw allows council by bylaw to freeze development over, in this case we would say, any development over X amount of square meters is frozen. Then you direct staff to study the issue. So with the study, there would be a lot more analysis that we'd be bringing back to you. So for instance, we would have the average lot size on 6 Mile. And if you decide to expand it beyond 6 Mile, we could do the same for other communities. The interim control bylaw allows you to freeze development for 1 year initially. And theoretically, the way it works is staff should be bringing something back to you within that 1 year. So it gives us a year to sort of study the issue, and then bring a subsequent recommendation back to you. If things are dragging on, council has the ability to extend it for an additional 1 year period. But we can't go beyond 2 years, so that's illegal according to the planning. So hopefully within the 2 years, staff will have brought something back to you, and I'm pretty confident saying we could probably do it within a year. But it is possible things could drag on just because of the community input. The process might take a little longer, but I'm pretty comfortable we can do it within a year. Can't guarantee it, but that's my belief. So interim control bylaw, you can do that without a public meeting. So it's something that you do by bylaw. But people can appeal it if they're not happy with an interim control bylaw that's freezing things. So that's one thing to consider. There's still the appeal to the interim municipal board. So we go down that route. You can pass that bylaw, somebody appeals it, we go to the board. The 6 months away there, if that happens. It's also possible there'll be no appeals, and we'll just let the staff come back with something to council to consider. So those are your 4 options. And I'll leave it to you for discussion and questions.
Thank you, Nick. I'll read the resolution. It's moved by Councillor Bochek, second by Councillor Douglas. Be it resolved that Committee of the Whole recommends to Council that the following option be selected and that staff be directed to bring a further report in October 2016 regarding controls on oversized cottages on 6 Mile Lake. There's 4 options here. 1, remain status quo. 2, implement design guidelines. 3, create stricter policies and regulations. Or 4, implement an interim control bylaw. The resolution's open for amendment at this point, so open it up to councillors for questions, comments. Councillor Cooper.
Just a few things. In terms of the interim control bylaw, I just wanted to direct this to you, Nick, if you don't mind. I heard words about restricting or stopping development. I'm not sure if that was exactly what you said, but in terms of, for example, if we use an interim control bylaw, does it mean that you're restricting anything greater than what's already in the bylaws as opposed to stopping any development? In other words, what exactly did you mean by that? That was my first question.
So through you, Chair, right, that rests with council, so you can decide to restrict all developments until the study is done, or you can specifically state in the interim control bylaw that only development over 275 square meters shall be restricted. So that's up to you to decide how strict you want to be. You can freeze it all, you can freeze certain developments, that's up to council.
So in other words, with respect to, if you don't mind, I'll just continue with a couple of questions here. So what you are saying is that we have the ability, with respect to, since we're more or less dealing with 6 Mile Lake in this situation, as you pointed out, we could say, apply the bylaws as they sort of appear to be, even though there's some flexibility in the wordings. Let's draw the line at 275 while we study this, and then we can come back later with some recommendations, having done some research. And theoretically, we can do that within a year.
I'm pretty confident we can do it within a year. The only wild card or tangible is the public process. So sometimes it can drag on, but again, I'm an optimist, so I think we can do it within a year.
And just, if you don't mind, a second, third maybe to that is just looking at some of the other options. I think, you know, the design guidelines is a very nice idea, and I think knowing the Go Home Bay community a little bit, I think it probably suits that community, where there's sort of a much more collective kind of attitude to building in the built form and history and blah, blah, blah. I don't know that there are many other communities that are quite so cohesive, and I'm not sure that it would be that easily applied, but it's a nice idea, I guess is what I say, and I guess in terms of comments further, I think that, you know, one can consider the status quo, but we have some issues, so I'm not sure the status quo is working for us. So the only other option was I think stricter guidelines was another one, and that's a nice idea too. But I think that comes from the recommendation process that could happen under the interim control bylaw. Have I summarized some of the things at all and accurately? All right, thank you.
Councillor Douglas.
Thank you. Just a little bit further clarification. I think I'm hearing correctly what Councillor Cooper is saying, but with the interim control, could that be designed or customized to one community only?
Through you, Chair, right? You could apply it to one community, you can apply it to the whole municipality. It's really
Parts or pieces.
up to council to decide where you're concerned. Thus far, I've heard the concern of 6 Mile Lake, so that is if I'm correct in my interpretation, then you would apply only to 6 Mile Lake.
Okay, can I supplement to that, please? So if that was to be put into place, an interim control, this might be a silly question, actually, no, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
No silly questions.
Yeah. Could somebody still apply for a minor variance from that interim control, or is that basically putting the cap saying?
What we would do is we would be freezing all development. Let's take the 6 miles. 6 miles says maximum 275. And you're freezing any, if an application came in for 276,
But they can still build anything that's within the current zoning bylaw.
Correct.
Right.
But could not apply for a minor variance.
That's right. It would be our goal, so they could apply it, but we wouldn't consider it until we had this study done.
Right.
So,
Okay, thank you, Nick.
Councilor Bocha?
Yeah, my question is, Nick, I have a little bit of problems understanding this, this option number 4, and I'll give you an example. The lot sizes that are left on 6 Mile Lake, the vacant lots, building lots, are pretty small. It's the last ones to basically go. So what we're seeing more of is what we seen yesterday in council. You see a 4,000 square foot cottage that they're going to take down, and they're going to put up a new, or want to build a new cottage of similar size or a tiny bit bigger. If I have a 5,000 square foot cottage on a big lot, and I want to tear it down and rebuild a new 5,000 square foot cottage on the same footprint, is this interim bylaw going to restrict me from doing that? Because it's saying any building over the envelope that we allow, say, you know, 3,000 square feet, wouldn't be entertained. So how would that affect somebody who's building on an existing footprint on, say, a 3 or 4 acre lot with 5,000 square feet?
Very good question. So it would be up to council, so you could say for your interim control bylaw, existing structures that exceed the cap would be permitted to keep going forward with replacement, like for like. So you could, to do dwellings, and you could frame it to address that. So council could say, let the existing ones go, but anything new would be on hold until the study's done.
And that could be worded in the interim bylaw.
Yes, there's a lot of room to put in any caveats, if you will, that you like.
Okay, thank you.
So in other words, you can customize your interim control bylaw.
Right.
The way you would like, what you want it to
The answer.
And grandfather, you're saying you could grandfather those existing structures?
So council could determine that. We would drop an interim control bylaw that would capture these types of comments, which is fair.
I think it would be unfair the other way, because if I had purchased a 5,000 square foot dilapidated building and I wanted to spruce it up and make it new, I would hope I wouldn't be limited to the 3,000 square feet. That is my point.
Councilor Rainbow?
Yeah, let me correct a few things here. First of all, we don't have any 5,000 square foot cottages that I'm aware of. In fact, most of our cottages on our lake are well below the 275. And also, I think the average lot size in 6 Mile Lake is about 200 feet. I think 100, there's very few 100 and very few 50, but most of our lots in 6 Mile are greater than 100 feet frontages. And so I think, and even for new lots, there isn't a lot of new lots on vacant lots on 6 Mile Lake. And if there are, the ones I know of have quite a bit of frontage. There's not too many small vacant lots. Most of them, as you say, are in private hands. And some of them are ideal locations, some of them are ideal lots, vacant lots, but they're being kept for family and so on. So it's really, I don't think it'd be better sold. I can't recall too many vacant lots being sold on 6 Mile Lake over the years. Most of them are built up. Going to some of these options, I think the status quo, in my mind, is not acceptable, because I think in the last survey that was done by the 6 Mile Lake Association, 60-some% wanted some changes to the official plan, and I think we have to consider that in our deliberations. So I don't think status quo is what the majority of 6 Mile Lake wants. Design guidelines, that would be complicated. I doubt if we would ever get consensus on any design guidelines on 6 Mile Lake. Even I probably wouldn't support that. I don't think people want to be told to build form, because we do have 850 properties, and you try to get 850 people to agree to a certain design, I don't think you'll ever get that consensus. More restrictive, I don't think that's what we want. Again, some people would, other people don't. I don't think we'd ever get a consensus on more restrictive. Interim control bylaw, I think this is probably the way we should go. put this in place and keep restrictions to the 275 when people come for variance and so on. And I agree that if anybody does have it, and again, we don't have 5,000, but if anybody has a 4,000, I have no problem rebuilding on the same form. So maybe grandfather what we have and put a restriction in at the 275 or the, 190 if it's less than 1 acre. So basically, put that restriction in there. I think the biggest problem people on 6 Mile Lake have is this vegetation cover that is being used in all the oversized cottage applications we've seen in the last several years. This vegetation control thing is always being used. In fact, it even went to the O&B as an excuse to have a larger cottage. And so this vegetation control thing really has to be reviewed because, as Councillor Douglas said the other day, is you never know what's going to happen to your vegetation on the shoreline. We had a storm go through our lake a couple of years ago. We lost a well of thousands of trees, and a lot of them are in the waterfront. And now cottages that used to be covered aren't covered anymore. So you can never guarantee that you'll have a vegetation cover. And heck, if I was building $1 million home and I was required to put a vegetation cover, I'm sure in 5 years that vegetation cover is something's going to happen to it. Because if I'm paying millions of dollars, I want to see the lake. So I think having vegetation cover as an excuse for a larger cottage, I think needs to be reviewed. So I'm going to support the interim control bylaw. I also think that the portfolio should come in here. Maybe should help out in this review because I know we have Councillor Cooper who can represent the Bay and their views about cottage sizes, and both Brian and I on the planning committee, we both represent 6 Mile Lake. So I think the portfolio should take a role in this review and bring some, work with the planning department to bring some recommendations back to council and the public. And I think we do have to have some public meetings during this assessment, talk to 6 Mile Lake, and if possible, even talk to some of the people in the Bay and get their views as to what should be going forward. We do have an opportunity here to try to bring all these communities that have restrictions on gross floor areas. There's a possibility that we can bring all these groups together so there's some commonality, because that's what we really want, is to have some common official plans, some common zoning bylaws. Here's an opportunity that we can review the possibility of bringing some of these commonalities to play here. I know Cognizine and probably Robert Casey don't want any changes, but maybe we can learn from what they have out in the Bay, because our zoning bylaws and official plans were the first ones out there. I think the Cognizine and Golem Bay capitalized on our first efforts and have made a better job of it. So maybe we can take a look and see if we can bring some of these official plans on built forms into a more common approach. So I'm going to support number 4 and suggest that the planning portfolios become involved in this review and work with the planning department.
Councillor Kay, anything out your way?
The only thing that I would say is I would support the interim control if it was specific to 6 Mile. I would not support it if it was township-wide.
Councillor Douglas.
Thank you. I concur actually with Councillor Kay. I would support the interim control if it was specific to 6 Mile, with some conditions in there, grandfathering the existing report. I truly believe that that's important. And also, I agree that the portfolio should be involved, possibly some public input and then development. I think that could be achievable because the problem seems to be sitting with 6 Mile at the moment. But I would not support it if it went for the entire township.
I concur. It serves no purpose in the rural area of Port Severn. It doesn't affect, people that are not on a body of water. And this issue seems to be a 6 Mile Lake specific issue. And I would support an interim bylaw if it only affected 6 Mile. and that there was the ability to have that a documented motion that can be amended and brought up to date as things occur. So I would definitely support that.
Paul?
Yeah, I think we're coming to an agreement on that, and I'll go along with it being 6 Mile Lake. And we do have to involve the 6 Mile Lake Cottage Association and the Ratepayers Alliance Group on looking at the various options that we could bring back to council. So it should be inclusive to the various groups that seem to have an interest in this. So I think if the portfolios can arrange to have some meetings with these two groups and other individuals on the lake that have private views on this whole thing, I think it'd be worthwhile to get as many people talking and see if we can find some common ground in where we can go with this thing. But yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Peter?
I just wanted to add that I think we're all sort of on the same page with this. The only point I would make is while the interim control bylaw will be focused specifically on, or we're suggesting it would be focused specifically on 6 Mile Lake, it doesn't preclude the planning portfolio from consulting with other communities in terms of some learnings and trying to bolster some commonalities together that you're referring to. So I think if that we just keep that in the back of our minds, I think it would be a very good approach. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to throw a little bit of a caveat to this. I would sooner defer this resolution today myself and send this whole idea to the portfolio so that you can communicate with your particular communities and other councillors, contact their associations and just say, this is in the works. Is there anything in our area that we would like to include in an interim control bylaw? Bring it back to COW next month, sort of thing, if I can get concurrence here. We seem to be pinpointing 6 Mile, and of course it was the genesis of this in the beginning, but there may be from some of the other associations, and I've sat through all of the cottage association plans and how they were formulated, and they're all very specific. Unfortunately, the size caps are too far apart to try and bring something township-wide sort of thing, and then there are other areas that don't want any control. I'm not sure whether you were at the Gibson Lake Association meeting when the idea of the lake plan was brought up.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you were there, okay. We were almost run out of town just for suggesting the idea, but anyways, it should go to the association presidents and just ask the question, do you wish to be a part of this? Paul?
Yeah, no, we've had discussions with our association, San Juan 6 Mile Association. We've had discussions, and they support an interim bylaw.
But your others?
Sorry?
Gloucester Pool?
Well, I was suggesting an interim bylaw for 6 Mile Lake, and the association itself would support that, and a review, and they would love to be involved in the review, and I think the Ratepayers Alliance would obviously love to be involved in the review. So I think the two major groups have consulted and given their opinions, so I think we should go forward. The issue I have right now is the horses under the stall, right? Everybody on 6 Mile knows that it's open season on oversized cottages right now. It's been advertised all over the place, right? Through all this stuff. So I think we got to close this up as soon as possible, or we're going to have a flood of oversized cottage requests in the next several months if we don't close it up. So the longer this hangs out there, the more applications we'll get to oversized cottages. So I like to pass this today at COW, and we can always review it again at council next month when we finally approve it. But I think we should get going on this and close this up as soon as possible before we get a flood of applications. And again, I can tell you the 6 Mile Association is supporting an interim bylaw, and they do want to be involved in the review.
Peter?
I'd just like to say that while I concur with Councillor Bianco's comments, your notation is certainly worthy of consideration, although we do have, as has been pointed out, a month between now and the next council meeting to have some consultation, make some phone calls, and I think our planning portfolio could pick up the phone and call some of the other communities in case there's something out there in those other communities. But the barn door is open at the moment, and I think it would be useful for us to close the door at the moment until we can get some better solutions to the problem. So I would recommend going ahead today. Thank you. Or going ahead with presenting it to council at the next council meeting.
Councilor Wojcik?
I concur. An interim bylaw specific to 6 Mile Lake does do exactly what it's intended to do. It's interim while things are being sought out. And I agree with Councillor Bianco. This is specific to 6 Mile Lake. As you know, other lakes in my area are not exclusive to Georgian Bay. Half the lake is in Severn Township, the other half is in Georgian Bay Township. So to try and do something of that magnitude on Gloucester Pool or Little Lake just isn't going to happen.
They don't have numbers anyway. They don't have caps on those.
No, there's no caps there. So, yeah, I still would support the interim bylaw and not support the deferral to a later date.
Okay, I'm going to try a different tact here.
Go for it.
If we can amend the resolution and ask that the planning portfolio meet before this comes back to council, and that they go through and make a recommendation to us as to what items in the zoning bylaw they wish to put a interim control bylaw on to control. In other words, I'm hearing the 275. Are we going to talk about closer to the water sort of thing? Are we going to stop anybody from coming closer to the water? I'm hearing you want a grandfather, so you got to lay out all these items with planning department so that the resolution captures what you want to do exactly. Councilor Wojcik?
I think a hybrid solution like you're recommending is not a bad idea, because it would give the planning portfolio time to speak to the 6 Mile Lake Cotters Association, the 6 Mile Lake Ratepayers Association, to get their input, to see what their feelings are on it before we make a final decision. So that could be a possibility that I would support, but I need to hear more about we're basically talking about oversized building here, and now we're dragging in setbacks and things like that. So to familiarize myself with the community plan and know that we're just going to tag certain items and have the interim bylaw address just those certain items, I'm not sure that's quite feasible. I don't know. I need to speak to Nick a bit more depth about that, if it's possible even. Nick, is this something that you think could work, where we take the community plan and the official plan and we look at just certain aspects and use those to put an interim bylaw, or do we have to do the whole thing?
I think for you, Chair, right, it's really what I would do in the interim control bylaw that I would propose would be to capture what you want. So thus far, I've heard the concern only relates to 6 Mile, and it only relates to the GFA. I haven't heard anything about setbacks for that. So if I was drafting this up today, I'm limited to 275 square meters GFA, and anything over that is on hold until the study's done. And that's what I would recommend.
So in actuality, what Mayor Braid is saying now about specific things is true, but we're only targeting the GFA.
That's what I've heard. In my 2 years here, that's the concern I've heard.
Okay. But
You you guys hear a lot more concerns than I do because,
Oh, yes, we do. Yeah.
Lori wants to say something.
I do.
Good morning, Lori.
Thank you. I've had my hand up for a while, but first I could maybe clarify process-wise. So the process that I'm envisioning is if you choose number 4, Nick is going to develop an interim control bylaw based on the concerns he's just heard, which is the 75, but your grandfather, you will replace what you have. Those are the only 2 things. But he would draft an interim control bylaw. He would bring it back to Cal next month, and he would make sure that it's in there, and then you would pass it to council the following month. So that would be, no.
We're going to come back to council.
Okay, I think I had hands up over here first. Councillor Douglas.
Thank you. Okay, so Lori, can I just get clarification on what you just said, because that just was crossing a little bit what I was thinking.
Well, Mayor Ray is concerned about consultation and timeline, and everyone knowing, so we can draft the interim control bylaw, and they can certainly do that with the planning board itself, except that I've only heard very simple needs right now, so if there's more, then they can talk to them, but if we've captured it, then we're probably good. If we bring the bylaw back to town next month, and make sure that this is what you wanted, and then we have it at council the following month.
Okay, I understand.
And then after that, that's when the planning committee would consult with Nick about grander solutions and start to involve the public in that.
Thank you. I don't entirely would agree with that, only because I think there's a big timeline there where you're going to have an influx of many applications. So, I mean, the thought process, I understand now. I would like to know if we can put the interim control in place from what Nick has heard at this point, bring it back to be passed next month, which I think is the process, if I'm not mistaken, at council, and have an opportunity at that point to tweak it. Can we do that? Yes. Because that would shorten it. In my view, I think that what's going to happen here, and I could be wrong, but I would assume that we would get a huge influx of people just running to the board with applications right now, and I think that's something that we don't want to see at this point. So that would be I would be in favor of trying to do that today, so that we're ready to go next month.
Hands up all over the place. Lori, again?
Nick can correct me if I'm wrong, but over the cap, they have to apply for a minor variance anyway, which doesn't happen. But we can do it now, we can do it later, that's totally up to you. But just understanding that it's a process.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I had Peter before Brian, but if I'm wrong.
You want to go first?
We'll all get it out there, trust me.
I really would like to see it happen at council next month, and I'd be, if it helps at all, over the course of the month, if Nick has drafted something, it might make some sense to run the wording in front of the portfolio group, just to say, this is what I'm thinking of putting forward, and see if we have any other feedback from the communities to make sure that, we've captured what we're trying to do. That would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Brian?
Nick, our number one concern here is the residents, seasonal or permanent, on 6 Mile Lake, trying to give them what they need or want. My question is, if there's someone who's spent a lot of time and effort at the Committee of Adjustments and hired planners and gone through all this, and they're currently sitting with something that's going to the C of A, are they going to be just simply shut down with this interim bylaw? And the answer is just no, and forget about coming back until this is ratified? Or how does it affect the people that are currently in the system working towards getting their minor variance?
Through you, Chair Brett, I think there's some flexibility for council to deal with that. So you could say if somebody has already applied, that they can keep going forward. You can say, however, if somebody has applied that they are not going to go forward. There's a little bit of flexibility in how you want to handle it. OLAR, for instance, the one you considered yesterday, has been in since February of 2016. So you may want to say that one can keep going. And that's, have that flexibility built in, so I think probably like I talk to the portfolio and we come up with a way to deal with those existing ones, and we present it to council, and council considers as a whole, that's an option, so there is, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of flexibility built into it.
Okay, I think that would be important, because if anybody spent the time and effort to follow the procedures and go through the proper channels, and after 4, 5, 6 months, and the expenditure just to shut them down, I don't think is fair. I think we need to give them their day, and so that would have to be something I would like to see worked into the interim bylaws.
Okay.
Just following up on what Brian's saying, I think I would like to see that maybe as of today, applications coming in that go through the, whatever your pre-consultation, if it's a committee of adjustment and if it's identified as 6 miles, they should be told no, they can't exceed. But anything prior to that, I think we have to go in the works, because a lot of these people have had pre-consultation, they've been told you got to go to committee of adjustment. I don't think you can turn around and say no, not after we've already told them they have to go through it. So I would say anything as of September 13th, if it has to go to committee of adjustment for the size, not 6 miles, it should be told about it.
Is that a possibility, Nick?
As I mentioned, you do have the ability.
So I think Councillor Cooper kind of nailed my ideas maybe a little better than I did. I'd like it to go to the portfolio before it comes back, but I think it should come back to council next month. So do we need to change this resolution, or, because normally this would come back to council? Word?
Thank you. No, I don't need to change the resolution, we have their staff direction. If I just remind the portfolio, the month goes really quickly, and we'll take a report of you by September 26th, so he's going to need to talk to you next week.
Okay, so after the meeting, if the three of you want to get together and set a time. So the gist I'm getting is I cross off 1, 2, and 3.
I just want to know how to phase this issue that can't be brought up about putting the trees as of today. How do you phase that into this?
Do you want that on the resolution?
I think we can,
Staff direction?
I think we can come up with something between the portfolio and myself.
But how does that get approved?
That'll be an interim control bylaw that you consider next month.
Yeah, but the point is, how do you stop something that's coming in tomorrow?
Well, in the interim control bylaw, you can say applications as of this date.
Oh, okay.
And you can backdate it to September 13th?
Yes, sir.
You double check that?
I will look into that.
Okay, so take that up with the portfolio, and we'll see your report end of September, and we'll see you in October.
Yeah.
I don't think you need anything.
No.
So we're not going to change the resolution. I've just crossed off 1, 2, 3, and it's going to include implement an interim control bylaw, and more or less in regards to oversized cottages on 6 Mile Lake. And the portfolio is going to work with staff, and we'll see and hear it all next month. So, any more discussion? We call the question then. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Thank you, folks. So we're into financial services. The resolution moved by Councillor Bocheck, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Be it resolved, the committee of the whole recommends to council that the 2017 municipal operating and capital budgets be prepared in accordance with the schedule set out in Financial Services Report 2016-15, with the draft one presentation and deliberation to be held December blank and blank 2016, with the goal of final adoption by council on February 13, 2017. I guess we gotta pick some dates. So who's gonna be away? Getting into sledding season.
What are the dates again?
Laurie?
The Councillor Kane had to leave, but her preference was the 14th and 15th. Next year.
14th or 15th? I don't have a calendar, maybe in the car.
You call one up on your computer.
No, my personal schedule. What is that, what days are those?
That's a Wednesday and Thursday. It would follow, it would be the same week as council, calendar, committee, the general.
Oh, okay, I'll probably do that, yeah.
Peter?
Sir, any way that we can try and consolidate some of this with for example, Cal, after Cal, as opposed to separate trips from the city? In other words, doing it on a Tuesday afternoon and...
Laurie?
It tends to take a full day, and it's a lot to cram in, and it's a day first year, so I would suggest that's probably not the best option. But we'll do it how council directs us to.
So it's a full day, so, and we need it all on the same day as opposed to 2 half days, for example, is that what you're saying?
It's typically better to get through the whole process.
Okay,
at
well, that's
once,
fine.
So you're seeing everything.
Pick a day. That's fine.
Can we try to do council and cow on the same day? We have done this in the past where we try to combine them both, maybe a long day, but instead of doing 4 days, we didn't end up doing 3 days. We did Monday and then Tuesday, Wednesday, like that. Given the amount of time, you could probably lighten up on December.
It'll depend, probably, but it'll depend
Yeah.
on what needs to come on the agenda for that week. So yeah, it's possible if we scheduled that whole week, that we could shrink it down into 3 days, it would keep the agenda light. I don't know what needs to come, but that's
So,
generally driven by what we've asked her to bring, so.
to throw this one out, what is district doing the following week? Do we know? Because I think last year, didn't they move their meetings up? And we would have got that. District council ended up being on the 14th. PED was at 9 a.m. on the 17th, the Thursday, and Engineering Public Works was at 1 p.m. Are they going to move their meeting schedule up a week? Because I can tell you, doing a council meeting here and then going to district council, I'm just a vegetable after that, so.
They're generally good at asking all the lower tiers if we have meeting schedules, that's all, so.
That, Peter, do you remember that last go-around where they switched everything around in October and November?
Well, I do.
Did they include December? I don't think so.
I honestly don't remember, but it might help us to check with what this district is doing. That's just another set of trips.
This is cow, so we can change the council next week, or next month.
They've only gone into November.
Oh, here's my phone ring.
Okay, so
We still have it on the 19th.
that's when it's scheduled, but they rescheduled, and then we rescheduled to the 7th and 8th. And budget was included in the cow on the 8th.
But we can change it at council next month if we find out the district has.
Cynthia?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think I requested that we move it a week early just for access for myself to be here. So I think it was 1 week earlier anyways, which worked out, with district, but my preference would be the first week. However, who knows what the icing issues are going to be. That may or may not work.
Lori?
Sorry, Your Worship. I think we have your years confused, because you did actually ask last year, but you didn't ask this year, so council and CAB are scheduled the 14th and the 15th. That's when the city council can't revisit it if they choose, but that is where it's scheduled. So, or sorry, not 14th, the 12th and 13th. So we didn't move it this year.
So what about moving it in anticipation district's gonna move anyways? I'm pretty sure they're going
Do
to.
everything the week before?
So the 5th and 6th, how does that work, Peter?
That's what day is it?
Monday and a Tuesday,
Your Worship. All right, thank you.
and then do the 7th also for budget?
Yes. I don't get confused there. You're wanting to move the council and cow a week earlier and then add the 7th and reserve the 8th if we need 2 days, but if I can shorten the agenda.
Now, if we could start budget on the 6th,
Okay, full different resolution. Council and cow, if we just have to make it.
how's everyone else?
Yep.
So 5th, 6th, 7th for our council cow budget.
I'm flexible with weeks, so
You okay, Brian?
you guys.
All right. That didn't fit into what Council A asked for, but that may have been because she thought Council
Mhm.
that week, and I don't know the answer to that. She may have been trying to consolidate it in 1 week up here, or she maybe did the week before. I don't know the answer to that question.
You want to try texting her?
I'm going to put that she's on the road and she's not going to answer my text. But I can follow up with her
I
later.
think Alan is with her. He may be driving. Try her. And, 6 and 7. So, let's just, put that on the table until maybe we hear back. Is there a way of getting hold of Pat? Peter?
Yeah, he's answering emails.
Is he?
Yeah.
He must have nothing to do today.
5 minutes.
I even have a picture of where he's from his hotel room in Norway.
Oh, is that where he is?
Yeah.
Cool.
He's probably not going to answer before.
No, it'll be a little bit time sensitive, I'm afraid.
Councilor
Okay, well, let's see what happens in the next few minutes. We'll go on to our last item and then come back to it. So, some noise bylaw concerns. Councilor Rianko.
Well, I think we all received the emails from Ken McVeigh concerning some noisy neighbors he had this past summer, and people had some quite valid concerns. I think we all felt quite valid concerns that noise by only applies to after 11 o'clock at night, and we all know parties going all day long, so. And it's easier to enforce or police noise in the daytime than it is after 11 o'clock at night. And the OPP can get involved if there's a bylaw involving noise and so on. So I think it's valid to change the noise bylaw to include all day. And I think I want to make it clear that it is all kinds of noises. called yelling, shouting, hooting, whistling, singing, and other similar human sounds. I think that takes in the stereos. I think that's one area that a lot of people are concerned about, is the stereo noise. So that's what we have in there now, the suggestion change, that we'll take out the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. and just put in all day long. And do we need to actually change it for music? I don't know if music is actually captured. They said singing, but other human sound, I don't know if music is considered. So should we maybe add the word music there too? That would be a suggested change to my resolution.
We'll see where things go. Peter?
I certainly am very sympathetic to what is being suggested here. I just think we have to be really careful with the wording. I'll give you some examples that have been brought to my attention, such as singing. In my community, we have a church, and on Sundays they sing, and so we need to be mindful of that. And we also have a recreation program, for example, where there are children during the day that swim and maybe yell occasionally. I don't know, especially when they're drowning. No, I'm kidding about that, but when they're having some fun on the beach at Arthur Island. So I just think we need to maybe get some guidance in terms of what we can and can't put in regarding daytime activities, and avoid having people, nuisance complaints, I guess, is what would concern me. So there we go.
Councillor Bochek?
Yeah, I want to be very cautious moving forward with this, because we sit around in my backyard and play guitars and sing all the time, but yet there's a wind chime next door that bangs away in the wind all night. So, we have to consider things like this. Construction companies are given the privilege to start work at 7 a.m. in the morning and use excavators, jackhammers, dynamite, whatever you want, all day long, until 7 o'clock at night. The current bylaw is basically for hours when people want or need rest, they're sleeping. There's nothing worse than having a barking dog at 2 in the morning or things like that. But I want to be very careful if we're putting a bylaw together to not be exclusive or inclusive of any one or any activity. I like the fireworks, I like the barking dogs, I like the noisy boats, I like all that, but human activity, we're here to enjoy our time at the cottage and sing and play and splash and laugh and do all that kind of stuff. So I would consider, voting in favor of the resolution, but I really want it to be specific and not be a burden to the people that drive up from the city to have a weekend of fun. That's my concern.
Councillor Douglas?
Thank you, Mayor Brady. I'm just wondering if there would be any merit to, we have a working group, which consists of Councillor Bochek and myself, if there would be any merit to us sitting down with, in the bylaw office, and discussing that and bringing it back to council with some recommendations.
You're talking about through the committee we struck for property? Dealing with bylaw and getting the input from the bylaw department would certainly be of great value.
I think it really would.
And through our fire chief, who I think is probably going to help us in term while we're in transition with a bylaw officer. Maybe we can all sit down in a room and feel this out a little bit.
Just a comment.
I agree with that.
It gives us a little bit more time to think about, because I think we need to tread very lightly on this one.
To our fire chief, how many bylaw officers would we have to hire?
That's one of the council's considerations that you're going to have to worry about. It is as you start to make this bylaw more accessible, there's going to be more enforcement. More enforcement is going to mean even our nighttime response, where we're currently not responding to, we're going to end up responding to at night. That is going to have a huge impact on the service that we can provide, especially going out on the waters and so forth. I just want you to know that
8 noise complaints so far this year generated. Of those 8, one is currently still open regarding a barking dog. And we've been working on that one since September the 5th. The other ones are closed. One of those is not even in our township. Once it got started to be investigated, we found that the property is not in our township, so we had no jurisdiction there. All the other ones have been closed. So you have to take that into consideration. The first noise bylaw started in May, and as I said, you have 4 of them were during the month of July, and 1 in August and 2 in September.
Lori?
That was where I was going to end my hand up. We tend to want to kill a fly with a hammer. So I would just caution you whether we need that hammer or not. And I get it's really frustrating the person that's having the complaint, but we don't get many, and normally neighbors will neighbors. We've got a fairly standard bylaw that most municipalities have to start getting very particular about it, then we're going to have all the issues that the question is whether we need something different than what we have, or whether we don't.
So there's a suggestion to refer it to the portfolio. I'd be quite happy to do that, because I'm afraid I couldn't vote for this. My taxes are high enough. They haven't hired 25 bylaw officers to go around every time somebody whistles or shouts. So, Paul?
Well, I think we're talking about the overall bylaw, noise bylaw. We talked about jackhammers and all that stuff, but that's all different parts of the bylaw. We're just changing one very small section. Instead of yelling and shouting and hooting and whistling between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m., we're just changing that to all day. So there's a very, very small part of the bylaw that we're actually changing. Now, if you want to defer it and have some more discussions on it, fine. I'm not suggesting that we make any major changes to the overall bylaw. It's just that one little section about human noise during the daytime as well as nighttime. So the other issue is, if it happens in the daytime, the police can be called, and the police can enforce it, but they cannot enforce it if there's not a bylaw enforced. Isn't that correct? You correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't necessarily need to be our bylaw enforcement officer to go out during the daytime. The OPP can lay that charge, but there has to be a bylaw in place in order for the OPP to be active. Maybe you can comment on that, Tony.
Tony?
That will lead to, if we have the OPP start enforcing it, that's calls for service now. That leads to a potential increase in the service contract for the OPP. Just putting that out there, because that's how your invoicing is starting to happen, is call for services. So I put that out there to let you know that the town of Midland is the only municipality within our area here that has that at all times. Muskoka Lake's tiny and Tay, currently their hours are the same as ours. So it's just throwing the information out there to you. Obviously, I'm going to do what your direction is, but I think it's a long, we would probably need to do a little bit of what are the consequences if we go down this road, and so that you would know what the actual financial impact possibly could be.
Brian?
So 2 things, Paul, I'll give you some information. I've addressed this with Andrew Ferguson and with our representatives from the Southern Georgian Bay Police Department. The way it works is, if we have a bylaw and the OPP are called in, they will only act as a witness in court. They will not charge, they will not have anything to do with it. If our bylaw officer writes them a ticket for noise and the police are called in, they will then attend court and support evidence to that fact. They will not lay charges with a municipal bylaw. So that being said, I think the intent of this is not for enforcement. I think the intent is for the people of the Township of Georgian Bay to know that it's a bylaw and know that these are the guidelines. The enforcement is going to be impossible. You know that. Everybody knows that. You're not going to run up 3 o'clock in the morning because the guy's having a banjo fest. So if it is put in and it's put in properly and worded properly, and we can do that through our committee, then people will know, or not know, but they will know that there is a law in place. It's not going to be enforced. We know that. But to tell somebody it's there may curb their attitude a little bit on what they're going to do. So I don't think enforcement is the intent of this bylaw or to change the wording of this bylaw. It's more to make people aware that these practices are not wanted, and that's basically it. But the wording needs to be very specific, and I do recommend that it does go to committee and seek out some further information on this.
So, Lori, I've run across this comment before that if we create a bylaw and don't enforce it, somebody can challenge us for not enforcing our bylaw, and then we end up in court anyways.
I think that's true, Your Worship. I think council over the years has had different opinions, and we've gone back and forth. Sometimes we think we need lots of bylaws, and sometimes we think. If Councillor Edwards was here, he would say, whatever Councillor Kennedy always said. I don't necessarily subscribe to that theory. I think we should only have bylaws that we can actually enforce. But council has often chosen to take over.
So like I've asked, I'd like to refer it.
Can I have one more thing before we refer?
Oh, okay.
You're not enforcing it until after 11 o'clock at night. So there's no use even having a bylaw that only starts at 11 o'clock at night. You're not enforcing it. But you can enforce it in the daytime. And that's what I'm suggesting, that it's all day. At least in the daytime you can enforce it. But if the way you keep it right now, after 11 o'clock, why even have that? So I'm just making it more plausible that we can enforce it because it'll be in the daytime and you could enforce it in the daytime. That's all I'm saying.
Lori?
I don't necessarily disagree. I guess it's just a balance between Councilor Hooper and Councilor Botecker saying that people live during the day. It's meant at night for quiet time. That's different.
Tony?
I'm not aware of Clayton's situation that has, I don't know whether we've been out there to, I'm going to say, to try to help educate the person in uniform or that. So it may take an opportunity that we can maybe educate the individuals involved. I'm unsure of where that's at this point. So I would need to do a little bit further investigation into that, what the actual scenario is, to give, I'm going to say, to advise you of some of those needs.
So there's some emails here that include you. Have you talked to this neighbor that, of this Mr. Ken McVeigh that?
I have not talked to the neighbor. Dustin was looking after this, the whole scenario that was taking place, talking with the complainant and so forth. So for me now to jump involved, I haven't had any contact with the complainant or anything like that. So even, I'm not even sure where the actual area is or anything like that. It's all being handled by Dustin.
Can we leave this one with you then?
And I can bring
Talk to
back
Mr. McVeigh and get more information, and Dustin's not here.
Talk to them, yeah.
And maybe can reason with the neighbor and get them to calm down somewhat. And it is annoying when it's all day, every day, someone making a lot of noise next door.
Yeah, I support that.
That's when I go and fire up my diesel. You let it rattle away, it drowns them out, and it really annoys them. So. Okay, so, Peter?
Yeah, I was just going to comment, and in terms of the singing at the church, somebody starts their chainsaw.
Well, there you go.
In most cases.
Ask somebody else to sing. I know some singing is pretty noxious in some places, but, okay, so I'm looking for a referral to the portfolio. Let's hash this around at that level, and then come back with a committee of the whole report next month. So I'll call the vote on a referral. All those in favor? Carries. They hardly ever get to tick that box off. Okay, so back to our other item, which will be the last item. Any word?
She has not responded, so I would suggest you move it up a week. The only other thing when I was texting her was, do we also want to make an adjustment to that week? So we're covering one whole week. And Councillor Douglas is having trouble getting out for the 12th and 13th, and whatever that Friday is pretty late as well. So I'm looking at next week, that's something to consider too.
Is today enough warning for notice for? Okay, let's do that then. Who knows what district's gonna do to us?
Yeah, so we would maintain everything, which I think there's pretty good, we can maintain everything in the week from the 5th to the 9th. And then you're done.
Okay, so I have a resolution here. Can you get that bounced off, Pat?
Sure.
And let us know if it's an issue. Moved by Councillor Bochek, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Be it resolved that committee of the whole recommends to council that the 2017 municipal operating and capital budgets be prepared in accordance with the schedule set out in Financial Services Report 2016-15, with the draft 1 presentation and deliberation to be held December 6 and 7, 2016, with the goal of final adoption by council on February 2017, and that December 2016 council be moved to December 5, and COW be moved to December 6, and C of A be moved to December 9th. Want to move anything else, folks?
I have one question now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but don't we in September set a goal for a tax rate increase? We've done that in the past, districts done that in the past, so when do we set a tax rate increase, potentially, with that will we could live with?
Lori?
Councillor May will maybe not have read the whole entire report where we talk about that, we're bringing it next month. We do normally do it in September for sure, but I gave it up to having a treasurer, she needs a little more time.
We're doing it in October.
And because we've done a community survey, we wanted to bring those things together.
Okay, anything else? Call the question, all those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Let Kathy know what we've done in case there's an issue there.
She'll answer my taxes also.
Okay, and finally, moved by Councillor Bochek, seconded by Councillor Douglas, be it resolved that the committee of the whole is now adjourned at 11:18 a.m. until Wednesday, October 12, 2016 at 9 a.m. or at the call of the chair. All those in favor? Carries. Thanks very much, everyone.
We're going to set a date for the meeting. Set a meeting with next week.
Conference call. Let's go.
We do that.
Mark it funny for a minute.
But what days are you available?
Next week.
This is on Monday.
Did you get those dates for that budget meeting? I didn't write them down.
What about Monday?
So we're likely to have a council account.
That's too soon?
Okay.
So it's Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Excellent.
You want to come in my office and try to pick a date?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll be in there. Thank you, Chair.
If we do a conference.
You got my little note in.
Well, you can,
Yeah.
on Friday?
Yeah.
Yes, 3 o'clock?
Three works for you.
Yes.
I'm gonna keep going.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're up.
Otherwise we go together.
Yeah, okay, yeah, and,